I just added a third mounting point. Like, I feel like this is the ideal mounting setup for indoor, maybe even outdoor. But this is like super. Like I'm pushing up against this thing right now, and like I don't know if you see any kind of movement or anything or any kind of jitter, but like that is seeming really solid. I have 3 of these, in fact. I think it's from Ulanzi suction cup mounts that you can use on the car. These have been great in the sense that I have been recording at over 3 hours at a time and they've stayed on, but I've used them inside the vehicle. And the way that I had been doing it was essentially using the quarter 20 mount at the bottom on the inside of the vehicle. Now, the challenge is that there's a lot of vibrations that are carrying over, and what I want to see, because right now there's one point of contact. The best form of stabilization comes from when you have 2 points of contact. Great thing about the Sony cameras, even without a cage, the FX series, you've got mounting points quarter 20 on this side as well as on this side, and even 2 on the top. But if you put a NATO rail extension thing, you get a little bit more. Let's see, does 2 points of contact, what kind of difference that's going to make. As you can see, there are 2 of the Ulanzi suction cups that are set up. I made sure that the thing was level. I've set my ISO to auto. Shutter is 1/2500. I don't have an ND filter for this, so I'm just cranking the shutter up as I normally would. And so we'll see how it goes from there. So I got this particular footage that you're seeing now from the GH5S, which has a relatively fast sensor readouts. The FX30 has a sensor readout speed of about 15 milliseconds. I think between 15 and 17 milliseconds. When there's 1 point of contact, this is what that looks like. But then when you apply any kind of Gyroflow, one of the things about Gyroflow is that it compensates for rolling shutter. It fixes rolling shutter in your camera. Even if you don't want to gyro stabilize, you can use Gyroflow to minimize the rolling shutter from your camera. Question is, I think right now I have IBIS on the camera turned off, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so that was actually IBIS turned on, but it was set to standard. And so what we're looking at now is actually the internal stabilization set to active. So with active, I believe there is a slight crop. And so what it's doing is that it is applying a combination of both digital stabilization as well as IBIS on the camera itself. And so this is the result that we get. Now, if the car hits any kind of bumps on the road or whatever the vibrations are, I'm assuming that it's actually doing relatively well. This is without any form of gyro data stabilization or rolling shutter fixate whatsoever. And so as a result, in the distance, you might see some of the fencing and the trees or whatever. Maybe there's some sort of tilt due to the rolling shutter. So now what you're seeing is stabilization is completely turned off. There's no standard IBIS, there's no digital stabilization. Here, everything is off, and this is what that looks like. Again, we're on a highway. I'm just looking to see what is the difference in the quality of the, if there's any kind of serious vibrations that need to be addressed, and does having 2 points of contact for car mounting and stabilization, is that enough? Or do I need 3 or more? Now the question is, how does this compare to something like the ZVE1 at 35 millimeters? Now, one of the things is on the ZVE1, it does not have mounting points as FX3 or the FX30, so having a cage is going to be important. This is how I do my face cams, in case you're wondering. The ZVE1 with the 35 millimeter, same 2 mounting. Now the thing about the ZVE1 is that it's got a significantly faster shutter readout speed. So we're going to see if that's going to make any kind of significant difference. Now, one of the things that I do want to make sure of, we're going to see how well the rolling shutter is in comparison to the FX30. So this has the best rolling shutter performance out of almost all of the major consumer cameras, except for maybe unless you have a global shutter camera. And if you don't know what I'm talking about with relation to rolling shutter versus global shutter, most cameras, when they're reading the sensor or they're reading the light information that's hitting the sensor, is not doing it all at once. It takes something like anywhere between 8, 10, 15, 20, 30 milliseconds. Now, in terms of our perception, it's fast, but if we add fast movement to a rolling shutter based camera, then some of that will be noticeable. Most typically in, like, you see the pillars in the back or the trees that are passing us by, there's going to be a little bit of a tilt, specifically within Gyroflow. They have a rolling shutter correction feature, which is very helpful. If you have a camera like Sony cameras that record the gyro data into the metadata of the video file, Gyroflow is able to pick that up. And it already has some of that information in terms of the specifications of the camera. And then if you have an electronic lens attached to it, like in this case, I have an auto-focusing 35mm Samyang Rokinon f2.8 lens. That information that I just rattled off is being recorded within the video file. So that way, when it is brought into Gyroflow, it's able to correct all of that. And so Sony does that. Insta360 does that. I'm recording on that here. It makes stabilizing footage very easy. GoPro does that. DJI does that. Blackmagic does that. If some of their newer cameras, the cameras that don't do that are, to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, to my knowledge, Fuji cameras don't do that. Leica cameras don't do that. Canon and Panasonic cameras don't do that. Now, you can add gyroscopic data in terms of the movement of the camera if you attach something like an Insta360, especially like a little one such as this one here, onto the body of the camera. Then what will happen is you can map the gyro data from the camera, from like the Insta360 camera, and apply it to whatever camera you recorded with. And so the upside of that is now you can stabilize footage that inherently did not have the gyro data as metadata within the video file itself natively. And so it's an extra step. It's a little bit more cumbersome. And in fact, having that's why I find it a lot easier using the Sony cameras. I had rented 3 GH5S cameras. They're great cameras, and I feel like if I were starting on my own, again, doing event production, seminar production, I would probably gravitate toward the GH5S cameras as a strong consideration, because they have all of the video features that I would want in a camera, minus effective autofocusing. The GH5S is a great low light camera in terms of ISO settings, but the other thing I also found is the dynamic range in the newer Sony cameras is amazing. It's just in terms of highlight information and just record an S-log and should just make sure that my highlights are not clipping past 100%, and I'm good. I can't really ask for more. The image is amazing. But anyway, this is the image quality coming from the Sony ZV-E1. You can expect the same from the FX3. And so I think the key difference in this kind of setting, I know with the CarCast, the first episode of the CarCast, I was testing the limits of each of these cameras, and I wanted to see how long I can record, especially in a setting in the car with direct sunlight. And will I have to deal with any kind of overheating? Now, the FX30s, for 3+ hours, they had no issues. The ZV-E1, it kept shutting off every 20 to 30 minutes because of the overheating due to the direct sunlight that was hitting it, because it was sitting right here on the dash. It would cause it to overheat. However, with the FX3, I did not run into that issue. What I've done now, I just added a third mounting point, and so this is like super solid. Like, I feel like this is the ideal mounting setup for indoor, maybe even outdoor. But this is like super. Like, I'm pushing up against this thing right now, and like I don't know if you see any kind of movement or anything or any kind of jitter, but like that is seeming really solid. I think 3 suction mounts per camera is the ideal setup for it to be a super solid suction. Now, the only difference is that if I were to do this on the outside of my car, I would need to secure some sort of strap, kind of like the way a bike mount, like when you bike mount in the back of your car, there's also these extra straps that you attach to the edges of the door and the seams of the vehicle. So that is something that I would want to definitely have for the outside of the car if I were to mount this on the outside of the vehicle. Now, Ulanzi doesn't have any kind of thing for me to send the straps through, so I'm not sure how I would achieve that. Maybe some kind of strap that would tie into the quarter 20 mounts within the suction cup, but it is something that is worth exploring. If I could find something like that, I think that would be worth considering if I want to secure it. Is a risk to mount this on the outside of my car, but I don't feel like that thing is super solid. Right now, 28mm f2 lens and shutter 1/50 with the ISO at 12,800. And this is just straight night driving. And just for comparison, you see that this is the Insta360 Go 3S. Obviously, it's like super dark. I'm just thinking out loud, in order to make a night ride car cast work, I would want high ISO sensitivity cameras, ideally the FX3, maybe even the ZVE1, because I'm not dealing with direct sunlight anymore. So as a result, I don't have to necessarily worry about overheating of such. And so if it's mounted on the inside of the car, AC is on, that should be fine. And then the Insta360 X5, 1, maybe 2 of those. But before I do that, I'm going to need to test run to see if overheating is going to be an issue. I don't think it will, because the ZVE1 does not overheat in standard controlled environment recording situations. It's literally only when I'm recording in direct sunlight that it will overheat about 20 or so minutes. That's really it. So now I've got the FX30 mounted on my vehicle. 28mm f2 lens, so you'll notice it's a little bit more punched in with relation to quality. Yeah, this is not a low light camera, so I'm running that shutter speed way low. 360-degree shutter, 1/24, but this is a nice aesthetic. I like it. Got the red light from the cars in front of me. All right, we are now on the highway. 1/48 is the shutter speed. FX30, Sony Zeiss 28mm f2 at auto ISO, currently reading at 6400. I think that is the max that I have allowed for the camera to go to, if I'm not mistaken, in auto ISO. Anyway, so let me know what you guys think. Let me know if this video was helpful. For me, it was to kind of see side by side what the effect of all this is, and for me to find what's the next one thing I'm going to be improving in the 3rd episode of the Concept Carcast. I'm hoping to at least get 5 episodes in the bag. Then I know that I'll have good momentum, and I'll kind of have a clear process for me that works. And so I've had a vision in my mind that I want to be able to execute, and a few things I'm still trying to work out. So among them is mic placement. So the first time around, I had I guess I was just trying to I was messing about with I had a mic up in the drop down visor for both myself and my guest, and then I had a shotgun boom mic that was mounted in the middle, and the audio from the boom mic was the best, but it was more pointed in the direction of my guest than it was for me. The second time around, I gave myself 2 studio style mics. Each had its own thing, but just kind of getting that set up in the car was quite cumbersome. 2 regular mic stands and just kind of shoved it between the middle console because it was just kind of like clunky. I had to have my arm around it. And so the second time around, or the third time around, what I'm thinking of is for mic placement, for me to so for me to place, so there are these cup holder microphone mounts that essentially go in the cup holder of your car. So I'm gonna get myself a couple of those and see how that works out. If that's something that's going to work. Let me know if you found this video helpful. If you did, let me know down in the comments below, and I will see you soon.